Thank you so much, Jonathan. It's great to be here, and it's great to bring everyone that is here in the room this fantastic panel. The devastation of COVID-19 on human health and well-being and on the economies globally cannot be underestimated. And we're also learning that more and more that while it's been nearly universally bad, it has been relatively worse for some, including women. So, McKinsey Global Institute has estimated that women are losing jobs in the pandemic at 1.8 times the rate of men. The latest estimates from the World Economic Forum in their annual Global Gender Gap Report were that we're only 68% of the way there toward gender equality, a step backwards from last year. And at this pace, it'll be more than 136 years before we get to equality. So now if we narrow the focus to that of today's panel right now on e-commerce in Southeast Asia, which our panel brings a lot of experience and insight on, we see an equally discouraging trend, but also an interesting opportunity. So research that we did here at IFC a few months ago with Lazada estimated that equalizing participation between male and female sellers on their platform could add 280 billion US dollars to the economies of this region in 5 years. This estimate is based on actual data from those selling on the Lazada platform in Philippines and Indonesia, and then extrapolated to the whole e-commerce market across the whole region of Southeast Asia. Interestingly, the data also revealed that prior to COVID, women sellers were outselling male sellers on average in both Indonesia and the Philippines. Quite dramatically different contexts for women's entrepreneurship. So there seems to be a silver lining in this COVID clouded sky for various reasons, some of which we might get into on this panel. The platform economy does seem to offer the opportunity for a more gender equal future. Let's turn now to our panel. We have 3 speakers from the heart of the disruptive tech economy today, a funder, a fintech, and a founder, each with unique perspectives on how we can stage a sustainable recovery. First, we have Gim Huay, Managing Director of Climate Change Strategy at Temasek International. Gim Huay spearheads Temasek's climate change strategy and initiatives. Prior to that, she was a management consultant with McKinsey and co-led the setup of McKinsey's first office in sub-Saharan Africa and Nigeria. We also have Christine O'Brien, a Senior Director for Asia Pacific Operations for Payoneer. Christine is leading teams that support Payoneer's customer activities from KYC, bank transfer, customer care to risk across Asia Pacific, one of the company's fastest growing regions. And Sonat Kaya. He's the founder and CEO of Soyaka AI, the creator of Shox Rumahan. Sonat has e-commerce experience in over 30 countries where he has deployed more than $300 million of e-commerce projects during his tenure in Chinese giant, Media, Amazon, and Philips. He has also authored a book, and with Rumahan, he's currently bringing affordable e-commerce to more than 200 million rural and unbanked Indonesians. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'd like to ask the panel to reflect on, first of all, how COVID maybe has changed how we consume, particularly in terms of the growth of the e-commerce market. And also, secondly, is a vibrant e-economy good for the environment and for women's empowerment? Let me turn to Gim Huay first.
Perhaps I could take a step back on this question because we've all been living through COVID for the past 2 years. And in Temasek, we actually invest across 4 themes: digitization, sustainable living, future of consumption, and longer lifespans. Right, and when COVID first hit us, right, we soon found out very quickly that there was an acceleration of these trends playing out. So it's almost a little bit like you have fast forwarded the movie. Right? There was a lot of shift towards technology, working from home. I don't need to belabor these points because I know we all lived through it. What was interesting for me is that when it first hit, a lot of my contacts within the climate ecosystem and environmental space were concerned whether we would actually lose focus on climate issues and sustainability, other sustainability concerns. And interestingly, I told them, look, Temasek continues to double down on what we perceive as a long-term challenge, right? And we'll continue to deploy capital in the space. And for me, what was very heartening is that through the COVID situation, we continue to see partners and members of the public not just ignoring the trends around climate and getting distracted by COVID, but actually becoming even more aware, right? So I would say that yes, COVID has brought a lot of difficulties in our day-to-day lives, but we've actually seen an acceleration of trends around digitization, but also growing awareness around climate sustainability issues. So instead of it falling off the radar, it's actually been put back more strongly. And I attribute that to the fact that maybe through COVID, we've also had a lot more time to reflect on what really matters in life. And truly the issues around sustainability are the issues that really concern us deeply as humans.
Thank you, Gim Huay. That's a great perspective, especially the point about how we've all been maybe reflecting a little bit more on these topics. And I think with COP26 happening last month, there was no way we could ignore these issues, even if anyone had been. Christine, I'd like to turn to you with this question.
Sure, sure. At Payoneer, like as you mentioned, like we are in the hub of the disruptive economy. We have definitely seen the pandemic-driven rise in digital commerce and e-commerce, and actually even the displacement of cash firsthand. With COVID-19 alongside with some government initiatives, like Gim Huay said earlier, it have accelerated the rapid digitalization and even transformation of this process. A few years ago, we see international businesses actually part of or the only privilege for big companies or corporation. But now, with a lot more capital investment and new technologies going into the development of marketplaces, supply chains, or even fast payments, we are seeing more SMEs and individuals, entrepreneurs entering the international market. It's no doubt that actually getting easier every day for all consumers and entrepreneurs, even online sellers, to participate in cross-border commerce and expand their businesses actually beyond their geographic borders. We also seeing some sellers that they sell beyond a domestic aspect, like a historically domestic market, such as Japan and Korea. During COVID, one of the situation that we see is that the supply chain are temporarily slowing down the e-commerce. But I believe that the growth of micro retailers and casual sellers coming into the digital space and the digital commerce will continue to grow. And in terms of the sustainability and gender empowerment perspective, I think that actually means greater opportunities than ever for women entrepreneurs to find international success.
Thank you, Christine. And I can imagine, turning to Sonat, you'll have a lot more to say about this as well in terms of e-commerce opening opportunities and even for micro sellers that might not have had opportunities before that. Sonat, how do you reflect on this question? Sorry, Sonat, we can't hear you. I think you're on mute, perhaps.
Yeah, coming
Thank
from
you.
tier one e-commerce experience in the US and the China, and we all see the tier one penetration increasing a lot for e-commerce. And in tier two and rural, actually, we are even seeing faster penetration than big cities, because in the e-commerce perspective, it's usually about taking some risks. If you have never shopped online, it's pretty much gambling. That's why you start with lower price items and you go higher and higher, and the more you trust, then you become Amazon.com, you end up buying everything from one store shop. So it's the same case we see from two angles in rural, one from entrepreneurship angle and one from household consumption angle. From entrepreneurship angle, our sales is not B2C, actually B2A to C, business to agent to consumer. And the agents are the ones who are the leaders for communities, for villages in rural. And because of this current situation, they are much more entrepreneurial. and they're quite resourceful because, as you can imagine, they are closer to agriculture economy, and as you might know, the farmers and others are way more resourceful than their tier one counterparts. And we see much more penetration in the workforce in terms of starting their own business as our agents, as MSEs, and also helping their household economy by selling these products in their community. Same goes for the actually from the shopping or consumption angle. These products were not accessible in rural before, and they were pretty much being marked up as price due to difficult logistics, hard to deliver to these villages. And they were quite afraid to shop online. Now there's someone in their village they can trust to shop from a faraway distance these products at the affordable price for their villages and without no markup. So we see more and more housewives and homemakers who run the economy, actually the budget and all the decision in their houses, are making these cost-saving decisions, working with us and helping income for also the agents in their villages. So we see pretty much double the trigger for faster penetration in tier 2 plus and rural.
I find this so interesting because I think with e-commerce, there had been some concern, and sometimes in some places it probably is a concern, that this digital economy would leave places behind. But what you're saying, Sonat, is actually it's facilitating greater access, greater last mile distribution. And I think that's just fascinating model. I'd like to turn to the funder perspective a bit and dig more into this with Gim Huay. Certainly at IFC, and I know at Temasek as well, sustainability is seen as a critically important commercial consideration. And some estimates put it at $5 trillion worth of economic opportunity out there. Can you talk about how you've seen sustainability create investment opportunities? Have you seen sustainability business models that drive this sustainability trend and impact? What are you seeing as a funder?
The way we've framed sustainability within Temasek is really to look for the sweet spot. What kinds of businesses do good, do well, and do right? And to take a very holistic approach, whether it is to address, and we've looked at businesses to say, what is this business's purpose? Right? To boil down to why does this business exist? And it has to be making money is a means, but what is the objective of this business? What kind of social issues or opportunity does it create? What are the environmental solutions that is bringing to the table? And over the last few years, when we started to put a very strong lens on this, we actually find that there are a lot of interesting trends that's presenting new opportunities across all the sectors. So the entire investment committee, right, looks at it. So it's not just confined to a single team, whether it is in food and agriculture, it is in industrial solutions, even in real estate. There are opportunities to actually deploy capital that operates in this sweet spot. The way we've actually looked at it started off putting in place an ESG framework, right, which I'm sure most of you are familiar with, right? So at least these companies meet the bar in terms of ESG issues. But right now, there is actually a lot more interest, and I can testify to that from the investment committee. If the investment team is able to bring an investment opportunity that actually addresses strongly our climate goals around net zero, right? And for that, we're actually prepared to take a very long-term view, right? To help contribute to the climate transition globally. 2 years ago, we would the idea of an impact fund would be new, right? Today is part and parcel of our investment setup, right? When we think about our investment approach, we're not just looking at the financial returns, we're also looking at the carbon footprint of the entity, and also whether or not there are other impact contributions that this entity is able to bring to the table. Because we know, and if you go back to our investment trends around the future of consumption, sustainable living, and these are the trends that we've mapped out as our investment strategy, it is very much aligned with where the world is headed. right? And if the world doesn't head that way, I think we're all doomed, right? We want to be optimistic. We want to be part of the solution, not to aggravate the problems. We want to be part of the solution, and we want to support businesses that would actually be part of the future that we want to leave for our children and future generations.
Yes, thanks, Gim Huay. I think in listening to you, I'm first of all struck by the urgency that you point to, which is, of course, absolutely the case. But also, I can see why Temasek and IFC are often co-investors. I think we're very much aligned, and that vision that you lay out of sustainable business opportunities is of course what we are hoping more and more investors take into account. Payoneer is one of the fintechs that's making this all possible in many ways. I wonder if I could ask Christine to reflect a bit on this growth in different types of payment solutions, buy now, pay later schemes, providing solutions for e-commerce businesses as well as gig economy workers. Talk a little bit about this digital transformation and how you've embedded these solutions in your platform.
Sure, absolutely. I think I'll tackle the question into three stages. One, let's talk about a little bit about the challenges that we face during this COVID time, or the recovery time, as we say, as well as some trends that we see and how we embed it in our platform. This year, actually, we see some supply chains delay and increased cost to ship. This definitely have created some headwinds for e-commerce sellers. Though while we're not completely out of the woods yet, there does appear to be light at the end of the tunnel, where supply chains obstacles are likely to ease throughout the first half of 2022, as we see. In the short term, we do and we should see consumer move back to a more conventional buying behavior or habits, because a lot of the big shops, they often have the first rights to limited supplies, allowing them to maintain certain in-store inventory compared to third-party sellers on marketplaces. Though we do expect things to return some level of normalcy as we see right now, and it will continue into the second half of 2022. There, hopefully, we will see the online marketplaces sales flourishing again. Speaking of which, we also expect the marketplace platform will continue to grow, expand, and consolidate. The consolidation part is very important here. While countries start to get back to normal, and we will see a trend where retailers will innovate for both online and offline commerces. The trend being that the retailers will need to find ways to connect online shopping with physical store. For example, we can see a lot of click to collect ways of buying nowadays. Additionally, we should and we will see more services that incorporate digital elements and provide transactional experience that is better than ever for customers. For example, non-retail sectors or G2C. We will also see a trend in increased collaboration between industry players. This is helping to create synergies between complementary financial solutions, which entrepreneurs can definitely continue to leverage. For example, at Payoneer, we paired up the working capital program with card-based incentive in order to reduce cost of funds for business that need near real-term and actually quite short-term capital infusion. For Payoneer, it's a logical step to partner with MasterCard, and it actually allowed us to offer faster and more convenient secure digital payment to our customers. Working directly together with MasterCard enable us to lower risk and give us the ability to offer more benefit to our customers.
Thank you. Thanks, Christine. I'd like to dig into this issue of gender a bit. So, Sonat, can you talk to us a bit about how Shox Rumahan is seeking to include women and contribute to a more gender equal recovery?
Yeah. Um, can you guys hear me clearly? Just I wasn't having a tiny bit of connection problem. All clear?
You're good. Thank you.
Okay. So, uh, okay, perfect. So in our case, just to throw some numbers around, we are 98.8% female in terms of our workforce. I'm sort of a bit of a minority. And in our case, what we believe in is the best way to help the economy is upwards mobility of the community itself. And our job is actually provide them the tools to make that happen. Because everyone, as me being the founder, entrepreneur, and having other entrepreneurs in this room as well, it's in human nature. And what we usually lack is the right environment, right ecosystem to just make it happen. And the mission of our company is actually provide these tools to our agents, to our rural communities. And what is interesting enough for us is getting closer and closer to more agriculture economy. They're way more resourceful actually. They're way more entrepreneur in the sense that coming with the creative solutions in the economy, in the community. And what we try to do is help them design what their community needs and just we provide the right products for them. We call about, okay, we have infinite shelves in Amazon and other retailers, and it just your landing page is customized for you, but the shelf is still infinite. The commitment to logistics still quite a lot. What we do a little bit different than traditional e-commerce is from the catalog, product selection, merchandising, promotion, distribution, everything is designed with our rural agents. So they almost are associates from exact products needed to other things. They dictate what will work better in their community. Just another example, in Indonesia, we have Indomaret or Alfamart, which is the 7-Eleven of Indonesia in these rural communities. But if you go to these, we travel a lot in rural, and it's you see once you see one, you almost feel like you find the most advanced thing in that village. And even when you go to the shops from one village to the other, it just the assortment changes maybe 10%, maybe 5%. So it's not custom made to the needs of the community. In our case, any store or agent house you go, you see the assortment is absolutely custom to that community. Plus, because we don't put and hope what it sells, we know exactly what to source. E-commerce is a major return problem, and I think it can go even double digits in the amount of items being returned. In our case, it's 0.x% because every single item we choose to sell, we choose to bring to community is actually an essential need, and we see almost close to zero returns because we see a different habit in tier 2 and rural shopping than tier 1. Not even shopping, but more shopping for the needs than tier 1. I think we're all guilty of doing some frivolous shopping in big cities, right? When we get bored, we click one click and it just arrived the same day in our house with Grab or Gojek delivery. So we end up buying things we don't need. But when we see in rural, we see that people really need these things and they're way more careful with the things they buy because they're running their household economy. And that we see is the other insight, bringing logistics and products to these rural communities, and they dictating the design of from the catalog, the way they want to order, the way they want to get receive in their houses. It's all optimized towards their experience. So there's pretty much quite lean, and there's no no misses and no loss on the way, inefficiencies bringing these products. So that's what keeps us really happy, being more resourceful and much less wasteful than any average e-commerce business model.
Yes, I can see that, Sanat, and I appreciate that you touched on kind of both aspects of sustainability that we're talking about today in terms of women's economic empowerment, but also the environmental sustainability and responsibility that you bring with having local products that no one is overbuying, or that there's maybe less overbuying. Again, Payoneer, you're behind a lot of the solutions that make this work for women entrepreneurs. Do you want to talk a little bit about how women entrepreneurs can get online, can maximize the use of your kind of platform and technologies to grow their businesses and maybe close some of those gender gaps that I referred to at the beginning are starting to emerge and become more pronounced post-COVID?
Absolutely. There's so much that we can do in terms of equalizing the gender empowerment. So women worldwide are now making their marks in tech and innovation more than ever. From borderless payment and boundless growth, you can see it from the number of female freelancers as well as the female entrepreneurs that anticipate in cross-border commerce. Payoneer promises any businesses, no matter than gender or in any market, any technology, connections, and even confidence in participating as well as flourishing in the new global economy. We are actually quite proud a champion for women entrepreneurs, and we constantly celebrate the business everywhere who are changing the world around us. At Payoneer 2021 Entrepreneurship Award, actually a half of the winners are women entrepreneurs. Their stories are very inspiring and motivating, and we strive to help businesses succeed and reach its full potential. Um, One piece of advice for women entrepreneurs, I think nowadays, when talent has become truly global, the challenges for companies, doesn't matter it's big corporation or startup, is to really offer attractive career development for your talents. We need to allow the best talent to really become a meaningful part of the company's success. If we don't do it, and if they don't feel a part of it, they will simply to leave on and take on major other great opportunities out there. According to the report by the World Economy Forum, globally, women earn an average of 64% of what men earn. Payoneer 2020 freelancers report show that the mean hourly rate of female freelancers is 84% of their male counterparts in the similar industry across all fields. So it says that there are much greater opportunities for female in freelance space as well as in the gig economy. Another piece of advice is to really scrutinize your talent retention strategy. Great resignation is really hitting business hard around the world. And with the flexible hours and ability to work remotely, the companies really need to rethink Monday to Friday because this is not the standard expectation from the employees anymore. So we need to adjust our expectation and enhance some of the perks that we offer to attract the right talent globally.
Thank you so much. And I appreciate that citation of data from your platform about how at least those coming through your platform seem to be earning, women seem to be earning not as much as men, but a lower gender gap than we see on average globally. And actually, this gender pay gap is one of the other things we've seen in COVID. Here in Vietnam, for example, it has widened, and that's something we never ever like to see. And more women we're having to leave factory jobs to do subsistence work. So it's really been devastating on incomes. So it's great to hear that those accessing e-platforms are able to boost their earnings. And in fact, that's what we found in our study as well in Southeast Asia, that, like I said, on average, female sellers were outselling male sellers before the pandemic. I want to turn it back to the funder again and talk with Gim Huay from Temasek. Um, Temasek has been making headlines for going big in impact investing, including your $500 million investment with Leapfrog earlier this year. I'm just wondering what other institutional investors, sovereign wealth funds, or pension funds are doing. Who's coming on this journey with you, and what would you like to see them do more of? And maybe what is Temasek doing to encourage more of this impact-led investing?
There has been a lot of uh, conversations in the financial community around how finance can be a force for good. So if you actually look at the number of partnerships and alliances that the financial communities have put together over the last few years, It is a very positive sign that we recognize the ability for us to also contribute to many of these sustainable development goals. Other than Leapfrog, we've partnered with BlackRock to look at decarbonization solutions, investments opportunities in the space. We have partnered with Brookfield, right? Very early on, when we were starting to look at the impact investing space, we were finding that a lot of the opportunities were getting mainstreamed. So it was players like Leapfrog that were the early pioneers, but the likes of TPG, KKR were also creating impact funds, right? To look at in a very intentional way opportunities in the market, right? So I'm actually very optimistic about where the financial community is headed. A lot of the questions now center not around the why, but around the how, right? And obviously there are many paths to Rome, right? And if we can have more players coming on stream to be very intentional about how they can contribute to climate and other sustainable objectives, whether it is in the impact investing or to support smallholder farmers in carbon markets, it augurs well for where we're headed as a society. So I would actually say that Temasek has been bold in our climate commitments. We've also made some efforts to contribute towards blended financing frameworks, sustainability objectives, but we are not alone. I see the insurance companies, other private equity funds, the banks also coming forward with growing awareness and recognition of how they can contribute to the solutions and outcomes.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And I guess there's many ways in which I'm also seeing more interest on the gender side, where I mostly focus in economic inclusion, on not why, but how. So the previous panel that talked about 2X, I'm sure had some great tips for our audience on the how. And I'm sure Temasek experience would also be another good resource for getting into the how and not just the why. I would like to encourage everyone who's with us this afternoon to put some questions into the chat. We are very happy to take your questions and have a fantastic panel of experts to answer. So please do put your questions in to the chat. And while you're thinking of questions or typing those, I'd like to turn to Sonat and dive a bit deeper into the sustainability question. So let's get specific on e-commerce and carbon footprint. Jonathan said in introducing the panel that it can be that you end up with stacks of boxes in your back room when you've been sitting online ordering goods during COVID, when you're maybe bored or at home. How is it possible to measure and track the carbon footprint of e-commerce? How are your businesses doing that? And also, what are you doing in your supply chain and distribution network to try to minimize carbon impact? Sonat.
Yeah, this is a fantastic question. And as you all know, e-commerces are pretty much logistics companies, right, in disguise. And it's all about delivery on time and shipment and fulfillment centers. What we try to optimize towards when we built these business models, like we also talked about being sustainable, right? For us, starting from the bigger picture, profitable is sustainable because it can sustain itself, the business model, right? The quantum of the model we're looking at in our business is unit economics. Is this business actually profitable by itself? The products we are bringing, the P&L per SKU product level, is it profitable by itself? And what we see in this journey, what we try to optimize towards is the frictions. Right? We want to remove the frictions, and also at the same time, we want to avoid frivolous shopping. We want to make sure that the essentials are there by designing the catalog, the things that people really need in this household. People usually get worried about jobs or middleman and disintermediation, but in the meantime, we believe in actually swapping the middleman or the middle woman in this example, because if you really look at it, it's not about the problem is not the middleman, but it's about if the middleman creates the friction or removes the friction and earns the savings with the positive profitable business model. Before this business model, actually, most of the products were sold already in an offline store in their domain. And this offline store is not connected to internet. They don't know what will sell in their community. They go to a big city, possibly, they bought the products, and they will hope that it sells. Right? And they, because to make up for their losses or their costs, they usually mark up the prices 2 to 3 times for their effort. And they end up with the aged inventory, and then the local population have to buy these products, not because they need it, not because they wanted to have it, but that's the thing they can find in their community. What digital e-commerce helps us is actually predicting the demand and knowing exactly what they need in their community. So suddenly the middleman becomes the agent that we have in place. And what agent does is actually only sources the things that she needs. And suddenly you have 50 to 60% just savings due to this inefficient middleman being out of the picture. And that savings can pass to the end user, so they can buy the right things, more of it, instead of trying to save and hopefully buy that, they just to give an example, they like to have bubble tea machine or agricultural products, and that's how they be productive, right, in their community. And now they have more money to buy these things and actually open a shop in their village. So that's number one, removing these inefficient middlemen to get it more efficiency and pass the savings on to the community. Second thing is actually, so this is a bit our secret formula in a way, because these communities are far away, to optimize, we actually do group buy. So this is the interesting thing. When you live in big cities, you have one-on-one relationship with Amazon and other companies. And to justify your costs, Amazon creates a prime business model. So asking you to spend more than $49, $99, because they can only bundle the order in one person. And because of that, we end up buying more and more things we don't need because we want to get that free delivery, right? But in that case, the magic formula for communities is they're in touch with each other. They save together, they invest together, they help each other's households. So they also can buy together. What it helps with, instead of trying to push a person to buy a single household, the things they don't need, they can join as a group buy. So a lot of things that many household needs, and they don't need to buy exact same product either. One person can get a washing machine, another person can get a furniture, right? And then we all ship these products in bulk to the households of the leader, the agent in that community, the shop, as you call it. So suddenly, not only that you don't do frivolous shopping anymore, but also you only do group buying and you send in bulk. And suddenly that also has a lot of savings in terms of logistics, in terms of carbon footprint. So this is how we usually, in unit economics, the profit walk or the price waterfall, CM 1, 2, 3 margins we see before and after we enter a village, right? The average price of the products before and after we enter a village, average income of an agent after we enter a village. And these are the ways, and logistics wise, the average cost per kilogram, per pickup point that we check before us in the e-commerce marketplaces and us. So these are the ways we gauge usually the impact on sustainability in entering these villages as a communal and a need-oriented shopping experience, not being frivolous.
I love everything about this, Sonat. It's great. It's great to listen to you explain how, in great detail, we're thinking through, or you're thinking through, the footprint and helping to minimize it through that very smart design you just explained. So I'm impressed that we have any audience, being conscious that it is Friday afternoon. And I know we still do have some folks out there. If you have a question, please raise it. In the meantime, I will turn to our panelists for one final question, which is basically, what is your vision of your organization in a gender smart, climate friendly, and hopefully someday post-COVID future? Gim Huay first.
Well, we've laid out a goal to halve our emissions by 2030 and to get to net zero by 2050. My wish is that we will reach our targets and reach it earlier.
Fantastic. Already ambitious targets. So reaching it earlier sounds amazing. Christine, can you talk about your vision?
Sure, definitely. The vision definitely to instill a better societal and economic sustainability through innovation. And by what Payoneer is offering to the market, like creating the ecosystem, and with our great partnership, we are actually very confident to be able to achieve that.
Fantastic. And Sonat, we end with you. What's your vision?
So in Indonesia's specific example, right now we are around 10,000 leaders, and there's many more villages and many more islands to help support. And in the quantum of the model works, and we just want to replicate this across the board. Plus, we see not only physical products, but actually when we visit the villages, we had the aha moment. We had this actually tech usage as the kids having actually the first smartphone ever being purchased for the family was because due to kids' remote education. But now there's a smartphone in that house. It can be for health related content, education related content. So there's and financial inclusion. So we see that smartphone as a hub to actually connect the rural, not waiting for the urbanization. And we want to be part of that journey. And any upwards mobility happening in that household, not from only goods and logistics point of view, but 360 their lives in that community. We want to give them the equal footing, equal opportunity that the tier one city partners they have.
What an amazing example of how that digitization is being accelerated by the COVID pandemic, that households there were getting smartphones to help with kids' education. And now it has this add-on, this flow-on benefit of being able to shop for the essential goods that they need in a very efficient way, not to mention potentially help the mother in the family open her own business as an agent for you. So I think we've come full circle with this discussion, starting out with some of the underlying really advantages or ways in which the pandemic has accelerated our digitalization, and how that can have climate benefits, and how despite the overwhelming nature of the global pandemic and everything about it, people didn't lose sight of a need to focus on climate change and take action where they can. I think there's still a ways to go on making sure that this recovery produces a disproportionately positive impact on women, since the pandemic has had such a disproportionately negative one. But I think from all the panelists today, we've seen some great examples and a really exceptionally, I think, positive trends for e-commerce in making a sustainable recovery a reality. And with that, I'll turn it back to Jonathan. Thank you.